welcome back. I hope you're all feeling refreshed and focused for the next half of today's conference. In the morning, we looked closely at PATH as a specific project. Now we're going to take a step back and widen the perspective. Holocaust education today exists in a complex landscape shaped by political tensions, digital transformation, and profound generational change. Our podium discussion now will discuss some of the current challenges like the passing of survivor generations, increasing anti-Semitism, political polarization, and the question how remembrance can remain meaningful for young people today. With us on the stage, we have Dr. Ruth Katz from Standing Together Vienna, and our colleague Aleksandar from Austrian Service Aboard. If this is okay for you, Alex, we're going to mix things up a little bit. I'm going to leave all the introductions to you and hand over the moderation. Is that okay?
Yes, very much.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. Let's give them both a round of applause.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining our podium discussion, or maybe I should call it dialogue, we have prepared for today. One of our volunteers, Brigitte, at the end of the last session asked us, what about the future of Holocaust education? What about the future of this project? As an association, we have obviously also thought about the future development of Holocaust education in general, and also about the challenges we faced as educators, as organizers, about doing all the preparational activities, conducting them. There were logistical challenges, but also some intellectual challenges. And I wanted to take the opportunity today to have an open dialogue with everybody of you, first in a 45-minute exchange with Dr. Ruth Katz. I will call her Ruthi. I will introduce her in a minute, and later we will open the podium for everybody to ask questions, to contradict each other if you want, to put, yes, we'll give you space to voice your own opinion. So we can take this opportunity today to think together of how to move forward. As Holocaust educators, we're faced with many challenges today. First, on the political side, there is an increasing support for far-right parties, a tendency which can not only be observed all over Europe, but maybe even beyond, as well as an increase of anti-Semitic attacks. So to mention only the most recent one I am aware of, 4 days ago, one day before the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, an anti-Semitic graffiti with swastikas and the words "Jews out, Juden raus" was found in the 9th district of Vienna. This is a reality. Holocaust education traditionally has defined itself as an instrument to combat far-right tendencies and anti-Semitism. How can we use it as an effective tool to counter these developments, recent developments in our society and in politics? We are confronted with the second challenge, which is on the demographic side. So here we are working with a young generation of people who have less and less direct connection to the history of National Socialism more than 80 years after the end of World War II. How do we make this history relevant for you? We're also faced with another democratic challenge, which is the question of migration. Germany as well as Austria are migration societies. There are more and more members, including myself, whom family history does not have a direct relation to the history of the National Socialism. Does the conventional approach to teaching the history of the Holocaust still apply, or do we need new approaches? The third and probably most difficult challenge we are facing is on the geopolitical side. So we're not only faced with a changing world order, but we're also faced with the fact that the state, the very state which was established to protect Jewish life, is now accused of committing crimes itself. How do we deal with this as educators? How do we deal with this in classrooms? These are the three challenges I would like to address together with you today. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Ruth Katz. She has a PhD. She is actually a musicologist by education. She got her PhD in musicology in Stanford. She has worked extensively in the field of Holocaust education by facilitating exchange programs between Austrian, German, and Israeli students. And she is also currently, I think you have been living in Vienna for the past 2-3 years? 3 years, yes. And she is also a peace activist in the association Standing Together Vienna. So I'm very happy to have you today to discuss these very important and pressing questions with us.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to say one thing before I begin. I'm a member of One State Embassy Art Collective, which does not imply a one-state solution for the situation in the Middle East. And Standing Together Vienna has nothing to do with Standing Together Israel. I mean, we share some ideals, but we are not connected to them. I know it's confusing, but this is the reality. What was the question?
I haven't asked one yet.
Okay.
So let's start. I would like to start asking you about the student exchanges you have conducted in the past. So when did you conduct them, and what particular sort of learnings did you get out of them? Okay. Could you tell us more about that?
Sure. First of all, I want to say that I started getting involved with Holocaust learning much before, as a young woman. When I started realizing what it was, then I started reading more and more about it. And when I was a teacher, I heard that there was a conference in the Memorial House for the Theresienstadt ghetto, and I heard witnesses, survivors, that explained how important music was in their life. My mother had a friend, Holocaust survivor, that said she could forgive the Germans for everything, for killing us, for driving us from our houses. I will never forgive them for the humiliation. And what I heard in the Theresienstadt house is that doing music, and the young people were learning philosophy, doing theater, gave them a sense that they are human beings and not the Untermensch that the Nazis wanted them to be. And some of them were crying when they were talking about it, and they felt that they must do something. The woman who made this interview was the chief. She was in charge of the entire musical education in Israel. So I told her we must do something. No, I told her it was very, very moving. And she said, yeah, but what can we do with it? And I said, I'll do something. So I went back to my school, and there they performed pieces from the cabaret of Karl Schwenk. He was a cabaretist in Theresienstadt, Czech cabaretist. There was also a German cabaret in the ghetto. There was a swing band in the ghetto. All the music that was banned by the Nazis outside the ghetto was played in the ghetto. So they performed these pieces. The old people, the survivors, performed with the very old voices the songs. And they said, okay, these are songs that my pupils can play, can sing, and we are going to make something, maybe a concert. And it evolved into music theater. And my purpose was not to, of course, to deal with the Holocaust, but the importance of the human soul. The human soul's needs, the arts, the humanistic, the thought, not only they were starving, they didn't have food, but they went to the concerts. Anyway, so then I had a German partner who I met in Theresienstadt, and he said, let's do something together. And it evolved into a bilingual theater project. We went to Germany to see if it works. It worked fantastically. We have the two groups met, and we had this show. Now, I must say, all people in the Israeli hall were crying. In German, a little bit less, but it was very moving. It was very well done. It was documented by a film director, Jad Neeman. By then, he was the head of the movie department in the Tel Aviv University. That when he heard about the project, he started shouting at me, "You are injecting Holocaust to our kids since they are in kindergarten," which is correct. And I told him, Jad, it's not injecting Holocaust, it's injecting the human spirit. When we had the first show in Israel, he was so excited that he decided to make a documentary movie. And he did. Now we went to Germany together. We had a show in Schwerin. I don't know if you are aware, Schwerin was the first capital city in Germany that representative of the, I don't know which one, but he told me the neo-Nazi party was elected to the parliament. Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. So we were performing in front of 12 and 13 graders. The next day we asked them, how did you feel? How is your Holocaust education? And they told us, we learned a lot about it. But this specific event, when we could follow the fortune of one family, one person, this really moved us. Okay, and this was a beginning of exchange. So of course, we couldn't reach those heights, but we always chose a topic, me and my partner, we concentrate on it, and then we performed it either in Israel or in Germany. And then when this stopped, because Israel didn't finance it, I approached another person here in Vienna, Professor Gerold Gruber, who is having this archive of the Entartete Musik. And he have me meet a few schools, and we continue doing it, That's it.
Okay.
Do you have any questions about it?
Could you talk more about sort of the specific exchange between the Israeli and the German and the Austrian participants?
The exchange between the students, yeah.
Yes,
I mean, what connected us was, of course, the Holocaust. I must say, sometimes we would have rehearsals, and the children would start crying, But as human beings, it was the first one. There was tension, I must say. Mm-hmm. There was tension between the Israeli pupils and the German pupils, but it melted pretty quickly. Because
when was this project?
It was 2006, 2009, and then we moved to Vienna. Mm-hmm. Now, in Vienna, it was a little bit more difficult. I think they were a little bit, I don't know why, actually. They might be a little bit less prepared for this. But they were always happy to meet those Israelis, always happy to meet the Germans and the Austrians. It gave them such a rich experience. In the beginning, I remember 2006, they said, we're not afraid from the Germans. They were waiting the Germans, the Nazis are coming. Like, no, but the situation is really awkward. The situation is really awkward, but it really dissolved very quickly.
Okay, thank you for sharing us your experiences within those projects. So I would now like to move on to something, some maybe topics I have been struggling myself as an educator. So first of all, if you look at the political science of democratic decline, you will often find a similar explanation. Sort of indicators for democratic erosions are often the same. Economic and political crises lead to higher unemployment, a downward social mobility, polarization, and more uncertainty and fear about the future in general. And this uncertainty, this feeling of uncertainty, is then the reason why people wish for, a strong leader who can single-handedly solve our problems for us. So it's economic reasons and uncertainty, and the role of memorial culture as a democratizing element. Sometimes it shows up in those studies, sometimes it doesn't. So I would like just to very honestly ask you, what does memorial culture and Holocaust education in particular, what role does it have in consolidating democracies?
Oh, this is a tough question. First of all, I want to ask, I wrote it down a little bit. Is it a strong leader that people are looking for, or simple answers? Or simple answers, you know, a strong leader. I mean, and when we say a strong leader, anyone that give us answer to solve their problems fast, save us from this situation. He is mostly irresponsible leader because none of the problems can be solved fast. You know, all problems of injustice, inequality, and stuff are severe problems that should be resolved, but it's not. In 24 hours, we'll lower the prices. In 24 hours, we'll stop the war in Ukraine. It doesn't work like this, okay? So I think they are looking for the one that promises simple solutions and immediate solutions. Mm-hmm. It happens usually to be a cynical person that can give those promises, you know? This is one thing. By the way, if I'm not mistaken, the Hitler wasn't chosen the majority. He came to power using force. I mean, it's not that the 50% of the Germans voted for him. Am I wrong?
Yes.
That's what we learned in history.
Yes, so the National Socialists actually gained the majority in 1933, yeah. So it was a democratic sort of erosion, step by step.
Like in Israel. Yes. Okay, anyways, I'm sorry for being wrong. I thought I had my history right, but I'll check it again and see what I really meant. Anyways, now you're asking about the Holocaust, the education. I don't know if it solidifies anything, you know, because if you think about Germany today, where the right wing is on the rise, and Israel, when the right wing is celebrating, we both have a very consolidated Holocaust memorial education. I was very impressed about the memorial education in Germany, all over the place. And still, it's on the rise, in Israel too. But nevertheless, I could not imagine a world without this Holocaust memorial education. I think it's of utmost importance. We need a huge sign warning us from falling into an abyss, a physical and moral abyss, if you're not there yet, okay? And I think the Holocaust is a huge sign for that. And we have to learn it, we have to see how people got to it and how we should prevent it. Also, we needed to stick to commemoration and education because our purpose is also to save humanity. My purpose is to save humanity. I'm being modest here. Human rights and humanity, and this helps me. And also, we need access to memory. Sometimes nations suffer from memory lapses, like a temporary amnesia, but we need the memory there so they can recover. And believe me, I know what I'm talking about. It's not history, it's my own experience in the United States and in Israel.
So I think speaking for commemoration, what is also really important are sort of these questions of institutions, right? And institutions only work if the people who sit in these institutions actually believe in what they're doing. So it doesn't matter if you have, for example, an independent news, an independent public media, if the journalists who work in this public media industry don't believe actually in being independent and asking critical questions to everybody. So I think this is where the educational part sort of comes in. You need to educate the people who work in all the institutions which make democracy possible, actually believe in this system.
Believe in the system, believe in the truth. And fighting for the truth is the most important, you know. The system can go wrong sometimes. I wouldn't believe in the system automatically, but I would stick to the facts and to our morals, you know.
You just went you talked about the situation in Israel and the far right. So I wanted to delve into this topic a little bit, because this is also yet again another contradiction which Holocaust educators are facing. So I know it's very difficult. So just a few days ago, for example, the president of the Jewish community in Vienna was in the newspapers because he criticized the prime minister of Israel for meeting with one of the representatives of Austria's far-right party, FPÖ. And according to their standard, for example, this really marks a paradigm shift into how the Israeli government is interacting with these parties. So this confronts educators with somewhat of a contradiction, because on the one side, we obviously want Holocaust education to fight the far-right tendencies in society and to fight against anti-Semitism. On the one side, you now have an Israeli government which is building ties to these parties. So how do you deal with this contradiction?
First of all, I don't deal with the Israeli government. And thank you for saying Israeli government and not Israel, because really it's a policy. Honestly, I've never felt so unsafe as a Jew in the diaspora as today, you know. Now, fighting anti-Semitism. Okay, I'll address why the Prime Minister invited these people, because it's not only the Austrian representative of the FPÖ, but you know, years ago, Strache was visiting Israel. He was invited by the settlers. Strache, you all know who he is? Okay. And he even went to Yad Vashem. Okay, Yad Vashem is also criticizing now, but he went to Yad Vashem with this cap of the brotherhood of this Burschenschaft. Yeah, he was accepted by the Israeli president. You know, it's not only the settlers. By the way, this president was afterwards accused and found guilty in rape. So it's not new. But then these parties were banned by the Israeli mainstream and the government because they didn't need them. Today, these settlements are the government. And they need those parties, they have a relationship with these parties because they support Israel against any resolution against the occupation or the ethnic cleansing going on in the West Bank. This is a pure, cynical, political calculation, and I don't suspect my government that they worry about the people. They would have relationship with anyone can help them stay in power and push their agenda, like from the river to the sea, is Israel. So this explains it. Now, what it does to the Holocaust, I think that Holocaust should be completely a unit by itself. It shouldn't be, Holocaust education should not be connected to Israel because the Holocaust happened here. The results are seen in Israel. I'll talk about it later, but it's a very unique event in human history. There have been many genocides, but not all genocides are Holocaust. And the more you delve into it, you find the the perversity of the events. Like, and I'll put it blindly, people used to compare with Hitler killing 6 million Jews and Stalin killed, I don't know how many, many more. But Hitler killed Jews only because they existed. I mean, now I hear here Austrians saying that the immigrants should assimilate, you know, either re-immigration or assimilate. So if we want a lesson from the Holocaust, the Jews did every possible thing to assimilate. They were perfect Germans, just Austrians. Freud, Einstein, Otto Klemperer, I mean, so many, Stefan Zweig, you know, and they were exterminated only because they were Jewish. So this is a lesson to learn, because to kill a person because what he is, I mean, the crime is a mild word for it. I once had a conversation with a Palestinian woman, and she told me, you do not choose where to be born, you do not choose to which religion you are born. The only thing you can choose is what kind of a human being you are. And I don't know what those people who did it chose. Did I answer your questions or just?
So the reason why I asked you this question is because in the current political climate, there's very often a debate about the distinction between where does a valid critique of the government of Israel end and where does anti-Semitism start. And as an educator in Austria, you are sort of not in an easy position because this line is drawn by different people differently. So this is the reason why I wanted to ask you sort of what would you give educators, but also what would you give students? What kind of tools would you give them in the hand so they can make this distinction clearly?
In the beginning of the last war, people said that anti-Semitism is in the rise. I think we should make a differentiation between the good old anti-Semitism of plain Jewish hatred, like Rabbi Shlomo Hofmeister. I believe some of you know him. He's a very prominent rabbi in Vienna. A few years ago, he was chased by football fans because he was Jewish. My son was sitting once in a pub. He went out, and a guy came after him. He said, "Oh, how are you?" Austrian. Red cheeks from the beer belly. And he said it in German, "How I hate Jews." Okay, this is one kind. Now, I heard the term imported anti-Semitism, okay? Anti-Semitism was here. Let's begin with it. The Holocaust, by the way, didn't happen when the Holocaust began. I mean, it has this ground to do what they did to the Jews, you know. The Jews were persecuted for hundreds of years in Spain, in Portugal, in East Europe, in Central Europe. So it was like a very fertile soil. Anyways, so there was anti-Semitism here, and first I made a differentiation between this anti-Semitism and anti-Israelism. You know, all those slogans against Israelis and stuff. Now, it's not that I like it, and right now I know I cannot differentiate it anymore. But I think criticizing is a very important tool in education and in understanding situations. If we don't criticize and we don't think critically, we cannot go forward and we cannot learn. Any criticism of the Israeli government's doings, to my opinion, is legitimate as long as it sticks to the fact, it's accurate, and it doesn't call for violence. And when I say violence, it's physical violence, verbal violence, or any kind of violence you can think about. Otherwise, it may be just a way to restrain freedom of speech and thought.
So the argument usually goes that as Israel is the state that is representing Jews, any critique of this representation also means a critique of all the people the state says it represents.
Okay, Israel says that it's representing Jews all over the world. I mean, it may represent many Jews. I don't know if too many, but not all of us. So it doesn't represent me, it doesn't represent my friends there, it doesn't represent all the Jewish voice of peace, it doesn't represent the religious left in Israel, and we have a religious left that they disapprove everything that the settlers are doing. They said their God is not our God. It doesn't represent all those Israelis that go out demonstrates every Saturday. So I know that it was Israel's, my government's, not Israel, intention to connect us all, you know, and it plays very well into their hands and into their anti-Semites' hands. That's why whenever I speak about Israel, I don't say Israel, I say the Israeli government. Because the Israeli government also forms the mentality of the people. And I'll give you an example. When the first Iraq war happened in the United States, on purpose I'm going to the United States, I have Israeli examples too. In 24 hours, the entire American nation believed that Saddam Hussein has a weapon for mass destruction. So the entire Congress or Senate, I think, except of Bernie Sanders, approved attacking Iraq. The result was about 100 million people dying, no weapons of massive destruction. So the mind of the people could very easily be manipulated. So I don't blame the people. I'm blaming the people who manipulated their minds and their behaviors. And the same thing goes also in my homeland, you know, but we'll talk about it later.
But sort of you have already tried to differentiate. So there is a state, there is a government, there are the people,
yeah,
and they are all different levels and sort of objects and subjects of critique.
Yeah. By the way, I'm not very happy with my people now. But I want to quote again, this time a Palestinian scholar, Amir Fakhoury. I mean, he's working very hard on the ability of Israelis and Palestinians to live together. And he says, you know, you cannot judge people in critical situations. You know, when the situation changes, also people change. And this is what we have to struggle to change the situations.
Another thing I wanted to talk about today is something that our volunteers, after they come back serving their memorial service, have asked us to talk about. So, for example, they were sent to organizations doing the memorial service after October 7th and after the war in Gaza started, and we as an association, neither within our preparation program nor within PATH, really prepared them for having the discussions around Israel, Palestine, and the war in Gaza. So they felt really unprepared and a little bit helpless with all the discussions that then came up in terms of Israel having a right to defend itself, in terms of the humanitarian situation in Gaza, and so on. And they came to us and said, we would like to have the opportunity to talk about these issues so we can be prepared when these discussions arise. One of our volunteers I believe it was in the US, said he had a fight with his roommates because they told him, you're making yourself complicit in a genocide in Gaza by doing Holocaust memorial service. So these are discussions they have, no matter if we discuss this in our format or not. And on July 15th, 2025, for example, so renowned Holocaust historian Omer Bartov has written in an article in the New York Times that the silence over the ongoing conflict in Gaza is undermining everything that Holocaust scholarship and commemoration have stood for in the past several decades. So again, I would like to invite you to advise us a little bit on this topic. So why this silence and how to deal with this as an Austrian volunteer?
If I deviate, just put me back to trial, okay?
Yes.
Okay, Omer Bartov, dear person, when I was teaching, I always told I was teaching music, not math, so I always told my students, never say everything or always, you know, because there are always exceptions. Not sure that everything that was taught, I mean, and there's also a question about the silence. I was lucky enough in the United States to hear a lecture of Jan Karski. He was the Polish representative, the representative of the Polish exiled government during the Holocaust. He managed to enter twice into Warsaw ghetto and to a concentration camp, and then he was sent to the Allies to report about it, you know, and no one wanted to listen. Like the British said that if you are going to help the Jews attack the railways to Auschwitz, they will say that Goering would say, I was right, this is all conspiracy of the Jews, this war. And then he arrived to an American Supreme Court judge who was Jewish, and he thought, okay, finally someone will listen to me. And the judge said to him, well, I cannot believe you. And then he asked him, don't you believe the representative of the Polish government? He said, I believe. I didn't say that I don't believe. I said that I cannot believe. And then he said, institutions abandoned the Jewish people, not people. Now this I also would put in like brackets because, you know, how many people were saved. I mean, I have nothing to complain. My entire Slovakian family was saved by Slovakian farmers. And by the way, if you want to teach something different about the Holocaust, teach about those people, the people who saved Jews. I lost my...
So I think at the beginning you were talking about this idea of
just a
denialism.
Second, about the silence, I don't see the world, it's silent. I mean, Vienna is very mild, but the demonstrations that were going on in Germany, Spain, Chile, United States, this is not silence. They just don't reach the Regierung, the governments, or they reach in the wrong way.
So Omer Bartov talked not about silence in general, but he referred to silence of Holocaust education institutions when it comes to Gaza. That is sort of the issue. So we are confronted with, and I guess our volunteers are also confronted with this. So on the one side, we have this memorial culture that says never again, and let's learn the lesson from the past. And on the other side, you have now the situation in Gaza as it is. Yeah. And at least the governments do not seem to act on it. So this is the contradiction.
Okay, this is part of the Holocaust instrumentalization in Israel. You know, I called a friend of mine, a history teacher, and asked him, do you feel that the Holocaust is instrumentalized in the Israeli education? It influences the pupils, and they say, the pupils don't get anything from the education, which is not so true. But I'll preparing this event, I went into a document that the Board of Education sent to the Knesset, the Board of Education in the Knesset 3 years ago, and the aims of the Holocaust education in Israel is strengthening students' Jewish identity, which personally I find it a little bit awkward. Why to strengthen the Jewish identity through such an event? We have other things to identify with. Zionist education emphasizes the importance of the state's independence, okay? And it doesn't have to be Zionist. I mean, they need a strong state. Teaching values with emphasis on human dignity, liberty, and life, which was very surprised. Acquiring historical knowledge of the period and being able to keep your beliefs in such a horrible time, and educating for responsible democratic citizenship. Now, these are all very noble goals that none of them is manifested today. You know, the only two that are really embedded in the Israeli students' soul is we need a strong country, and a strong Jewish identity. That's why they're going to Poland. They used to go to Poland to see the gas chambers wrapped with Israeli flags. And believe me, it works. It works. Now, the problem is here that the Jews, the government didn't want to give the Holocaust education as a general, universal lesson. I mean, they deducted only for the Jewish people, and they used it only for what they needed, which is okay, but is only part of the cake. You know, when they discussed whether to go to Germany instead of Poland, because they quit the trips to Poland, some said that Germany is dangerous because there you get a universal education. And we want to be very specific to the Jews. And this is really confusing. Now, another thing is this government really doesn't represent anything. I mean, it doesn't represent anything that the Holocaust Memorial stands for. Actually, they are betraying everything.
Why?
Because what we are doing. I mean, one of the things they said, human lives, like dignity, liberty, and life. There's no liberty, no dignity, and no life. And it's also towards our own people, you know. Like 15 years ago, no one would ever think of leaving live hostages with the Hamas. It was unheardable. Then it was part of the tactics. Hannibal, you know. So to be so aggressive and critic, but I'm hurting. I'm really hurting. You know, I came to Vienna because of the corona, not because I fled. And I would never give up my Israeli citizenship. But I feel that I lost something very deep.
I think let's open the discussion. Yeah. Okay. Ruthie, thank you very much. So we just touched upon some of the topics I mentioned in the introduction, the political landscape we are confronted with, and the geopolitical challenges we are confronted with. So now I see one hand over there already, to open the floor to the audience and ask questions regarding this dialogue we just had.
Another one?
Mm-hmm. There are two hands over here.
I need a beer.
Hi, thank you for speaking. I would like to say, first of all, that I think there's a lot of generalization that you're doing there, with especially the Israeli students, because I have a lot of friends in Israel, and the things that you told me, that you told now, don't reflect in what I hear from them. Second of all, I am an Austrian Jew here living, and I would consider myself probably center, and I think Israel does represent me, and it's very important to me. And the third thing now is, I have to think what. Do you believe that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza? And if it is, does that mean that Israel deliberately wants to extinguish the people of Palestine?
First, I would like to know what your friends in Israel, what's the contradiction, because I want to answer it. You talk about the friends in Israel.
You said that they think that they are a very strong state, and you also said that the Shoah isn't it should be only very focused on Israeli history, and that's not what I hear from my friends in Israel. It's the way they talk about the Shoah, like also we do. I don't know how it works everywhere else, but for example, in the school that I go here, I learn about the Austrian history, the general history about Austria, and then I also have a special section about the Shoah, about the Second World War, because it was a very important part of the Jewish history. I go to a Jewish school, and I hear the same things from Israelis.
Good. First of all, I'm glad to hear that. I was quoting, I know what was happening in my school, a liberal school. I was quoting a document of the Board of Education that this was their goal. You know, it wasn't my opinion. A formal document of the Knesset it was, okay? To strengthen the Jewish identity, to build a strong state. And all the other ones are there, but they are not that prominent. And they know why, because the situation outside the school, outside the classroom, is much stronger than the education we give. So to some people, and for many, I mean, for many it works, but more it doesn't. It also depends on the teachers. I must tell you that 75% of the teachers in Israel do not believe in the goal of these universal goals in the general education, in the religious education, because we have 5 different systems, you know. In the religious, 50% do not believe it's important. And this is a formal document of the Israeli Knesset from 3 years ago. About what? In the religious education, in the public religious education. We have secular public education.
So that's 1 out of 5, right?
One.
So that's one part of education, out of 5 different educations in Israel.
I'm betting.
You mentioned, so that's one of them, right?
Yeah, and then we have the ultra-Orthodox education, we have the Arabic education, and the Druze. And also we have some schools of the mission, but they are like extraterritorial. And yeah. And everyone has, the Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox have completely different curriculum, completely different. And they don't serve the army. So anyways, now the second question was?
No, the first 2 were just statements that I said. No, it's fine. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
The question was about whether you consider Israel's doings in Gaza a genocide.
And okay, listen.
That's what it is. Genocide, sorry. A genocide means, right? Like, that's what I thought it means. Genocide means to want to extinguish a people because of their identity of this is who am I. So, for example, when Hitler tried to kill the Jews, he killed them because they were Jewish.
No. Sorry to interrupt you. This is Hitler. I mean, we had genocides. We had genocide in Bosnia and Rwanda. There was a fight on different levels. I mean, the Jews did nothing to Hitler. We didn't settle there. We didn't fight him. I mean, not him, Germany. I mean, Hitler, of course, if you could do anything. Genocide is not Holocaust, okay? Holocaust is a genocide. But it's a special kind of a genocide, okay? And if I consider it a genocide, listen, we in Standing Together had long debates on it. We said that we are not going to call it a genocide until there is some international until the JCC decided that if Israel, the government, doesn't do this, providing humanitarian, then they're approaching a genocide. Now, they didn't provide humanitarian, we didn't provide humanitarian care, we continued bombing. So then we started using carefully the word genocide, genocidal war. Once B'Tselem and doctors from, physicians from human rights came out with the report, August 80. From
the UN?
No, the Israeli organizations.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Amnesty too, but then the 2 Israeli organizations, doctors from human rights, and if anyone wants to tell me that they're anti-Zionist, the guy who founded them, it was their head of this, he was the private doctor of Shimon Peres, the president of Israel, and his son-in-law. So when they came out with this report, and believe me, it's very hurting, then more and more people in Israel and here, we use more the word genocide. Now, it doesn't matter how you call it. The matter is what has been and being done.
Thanks very much. Thanks for those questions and statements. Let's move along to someone else. Gentleman at the back.
First of all, I want to thank you for your time. I don't want to really connect my question to this question. I want to ask you, you mentioned, or I would like to ask why you think there's such a rise of the right-winged political opinions in the Western world, including Israel, and when there was this shift of the popularity rising, what was such a key moment of it happening? If you have an answer to it.
Listen, I'm not a social scientist, but societies today are unhealthy societies. You know, the gap between riches and poor, the taking away basic, especially in the United States, but taking away privileges, you know, like medical security. And then, of course, the fight. I told you that I found the right-wing leaders cynical. And then when they had this immigration from the East, you know, the Syrians and stuff, they find someone that they can hit the hatred to him, to her, you know, and then rise up on this hatred. Hatred and division is very good food for totalitarianism. This is my assumption. I didn't look too much into it because it really gets me frightened.
Great, thanks very much. I think we have questions at the back, and otherwise the lady at the front.
No, before the lady was the guy behind.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm keeping order. Okay, nice. The ladies first. Okay.
Don't you think whatever is written about Israel, especially in papers, in last 2 or 3 years, it does not describe Israel, it describes Netanyahu, because he, I suppose you know that everybody knows this in Israel. He wants to stay in his position, and he needs this 40 or 50% religious people to who we know they from the river to the sea is their way of the sea. They see the future in this way, and he needs them to stay where he is. It's not at all. 80% of Israelis don't think this way.
Today, maybe yes, but it's changeable. Listen, talking about, I just wanted, you had this about instrumentalization. Just, I want to say how it works, you know, because Netanyahu is like a magician of implementing fear and hate and division. 2011 were the big demonstration in Israel, and suddenly they started to have an operation in Gaza, and we all said, no matter what, we'll continue to demonstrate. And it stopped. Listen. Good.
And all my friends, they go twice a week.
I know.
Demonstrating against Netanyahu.
And no one.
There are these religious people, and he gets this majority.
Oh, good. Thank you for saying it, because I know people don't know the thousands of the dozens of thousands of Israelis are demonstrating against him, and he's the first one to abuse and instrumentalize the Holocaust. And this is something. If you want to teach something, this is how not to instrumentalize it. You know, before they murdered Rabin, they had pictures of Rabin in an SS uniform. Let's begin there. Or anyways, and he's constantly frightening. And you ask about intention. He was saying Amalek. You know, I didn't know what Amalek did to the Jews. I know what we did to Amalek. The Lord's order was to kill every child, woman, elderly, man, chicken, all the cattle. And then the king also had only the Amaleki king, he stayed alive. And the one rabbi's wife told me that, okay, I won't tell you. Anyways, you're right. I mean, that's what they say, that it's not the people, it's the government. Yeah.
Right, let's try and get some other questions in. I think the lady up at the front.
Hello. Thank you for the lecture and for the interview. I wanted to address the first question and your answer a little bit, because, well, you said you didn't really answer the question, and I'm really confused, because you said that it doesn't matter how it's called, what matters is the reality. And if I learned something from this project, what I'm really thankful for, is how we use the language, and that it all starts from the language. And we have to be really precise and careful about the words that we use. And that's my question. Like, if you think it's precise and it has its connotations, the genocide word, and it has its own definition. And the first question, I think, was about the definition, that it has very precise definition and connotations, you know? And it associates with things. And we have to think, in my opinion, in like a wider perspective, you know? When we use the words, we have to think about the reality and how to describe the reality, but also how it will affect future, you know, perspective.
Okay, I'll give you a lesson. If it's first of all, it's a genocide. I mean, there was an intention. There was an intention to. I mean, once he said, "Let's do what Amalek," and the other one said that let's drop a atom bomb on Gaza. And now it's not a genocide. That's what I wanted to tell you. It's not a genocide because they were alive, but they were Palestinians living on a land that we don't want them to be, and they attacked us. I mean, now also, as I said, the Holocaust didn't begin when the Holocaust began. It began before with anti-Semitism. 7th of October didn't begin on 7th of October, you know. We have a long conflict in this land, you may say from 67, you know. I participated in one of the very first demonstrations against settling the West Bank, 1976. And when people ask me about my peace activity, I'm a total failure. Just see what's going on now, okay? Some may say 48, and some may say in the beginning of 20th century. But right now, 7th of October was a result of, by the way, I am not agreeing with it. I'm totally condemning it. And standing together the very first week or second week of this war, we condemned the Hamas attack on the Israelis. 4 of my close friends died there. Very innocent people. I'm condemning it, but I'm saying it didn't start the conflict. Now, I didn't, when it started, I said, oh my God, what the Gazans are going to suffer now. I didn't imagine. And now one of the things to differentiate what is going there from, we see you, genocide is the intention. Because what we are doing at destroying the entire land, I mean, 70%, all the hospitals, they are chasing, what do you call it, medical staff, schools, university, Muslim, everything is destroyed. So what? People, 70,000 people, the Israeli army agreed. You know that in Srebrenica, 8,000 people died. It's not that I'm competing, but so it could not be a genocide unless there was an intention of the government. And our discussion was in the beginning, was it intentional or just a collateral damage? And with time, you see, it cannot be a collateral damage if 2 kids are going to pick up food. Young children, 9 and 10 years old, they're small. You cannot confuse them with terrorists are being shot. So, but any case, I mean, I know words are important. Believe me, I know I work with words. On the other hand, you have to know to whom you are talking. Because when we send someone an invitation to our conferences, and by the way, I want to invite you on the 27th and 28th to see how Jews, Israelis, and Palestinians, Israelis, sit together, talk about their common destiny, trying to build a future together. I think you'll get a very good lesson about how people can build themselves in democracy. Anyways,
So you have now been talking about an event
there
of
is
standing together.
event of one state embassy standing together. We call it narrative and recognition. We'll have guests from Palestine, Israel, also a very good exhibition. By the way, exhibition by a Palestinian who makes a dialogue between the Holocaust and the Nakba. It could be very interesting for you. Anyways, now I forgot. I got distracted, so excited.
Yeah.
And that's what they said. Amalek, saying we are going to do Amalek or do the resident to Gaza. There is an intention. It was said on October.
Thanks for that discussion. I think we can take one more question.
But this guy is waiting so long.
Okay, yeah, please, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So we asked about the definition of the border of anti-Semitism and legitimate criticism of Israel. Your answer, if I was not wrong, is that as long as you stick to the facts and as long as you don't call for violence, it's not anti-Semitism.
Any kind of violence, yeah.
Yes.
No, I can give you more examples. No.
Just a second.
No, and it's not targeting a group of people. I forgot to say that.
So, in the same time, you represent an organization that, at least in Vienna, breaks all of these rules constantly. They call for not. They don't understand the Jewish character of the only Jewish state, Israel, which is already denying its right to exist. They're constantly victim blaming for every single war what was started upon Israel, and yes, it didn't start on October 7th, it did start on 1948 when 7 Arab armies invaded Israel and wanted to kill it and put the Jews back to the sea, as it was said. And every single war after this, you're putting the blame on Israel, or your organization is putting the blame on Israel. Also, they're cooperating with groups like the Migrantifa, which do call for active violence against Jews in the name of the globalized Intifada. This combined with the facts that you seem to not know basic facts about the rise of Hitler, what Amalek did to the Jews, and that one sentence after Netanyahu mentioned that Amalek was they're fighting against Amalek, he said that with Amalek we mean specifically Hamas, and we are wanting to destroy Hamas, and this is exactly what they are trying to do. I don't see any connection to facts here. Okay. I see a person who is feeling a lot, and I see a person who is thinking a lot. I don't see a person who is knowing a lot, and I don't see what we can learn from you, so I'm asking you what.
I know that you'll get me on this Hitler thing. I'm not surprised. Okay, wait. What was the organization I mentioned that we don't have any idea what it is?
Your organization, Standing Together Vienna, I can show you all Instagram.
Okay, but what is that we are... We don't cooperate with migrants. We don't definitely cooperate with the BDS. We definitely do not deny the right of Israel to exist.
Isabel Frey is a BDS activist. He's your most public figure.
Stop embarrassing yourself.
Okay, anyways, no.
Everybody knows that.
We know her, she's not.
Everybody knows that.
She's not what?
A BDS activist.
She used to be BDS activist.
She
changed here, she's your most public figure.
Okay, so you have to be happy that she changed. I think people should change, you know. If we don't change, we'll continue with this war forever. So I'm waiting for everyone to change, the Palestinians to accept the existence of Israel in the region and the Israelis to accept the Palestinians. If we don't change, we'll continue fighting forever. Another thing you said about, we do not deny the right of Israel to exist. We don't talk about it. Actually, all our friends, they are supportive of the Jewish self-definition in the area. And not only our friends in Standing Together, but many Palestinian scholars consider, including Rashid Khalidi, the historian, or Raif Zrek, who is, you should read his articles, telling people that Israelis have connections to Israel, the Jews have connection to Israel long ago, and the Israeli state exists, and we just have to make it right. This is what we say. We don't want to live in war forever.
Okay, I think we could get lost in details for the rest of today. Thank you very much for... I understand that, but unfortunately our time schedule doesn't allow for it. Perhaps... I would love to too, but unfortunately we need to stick to our time schedule. I would appreciate if we can move on to one more question. I'm very sure that after the conference we have a dinner where the conversations that we started here can continue there, where we can exchange opinions, and yeah. Let's move on to one more question, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm also very grateful. Do you hear me? Okay. Thank you very much. I'm also very grateful for your opinion and your perspective. My question is sort of, how do you address, as a memorial site, the current situation in Gaza, if you also are like in the Middle East, and the context we have already discussed a lot, and how do you deal with also pressure by pro-Israeli government groups and Jewish supremacist groups?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I did not hear you acoustically. I don't think they did on the stage either.
Yeah.
If you can try once more, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your perspective. I was just going to ask, how should the Holocaust Memorial deal with the current situation, and especially what's going on in the Middle East, in the context of also a lot of pressure on the memorial sites by pro-Israeli groups and Jewish supremacist groups? Thank you.
Great, thanks very much.
I'm not aware of the pressure on the memorial, of the pressure from the Israeli groups. I'm not aware of what kind of pressure there is.
I think what the person is referring to is sort of this, let's say, traditional Holocaust memorial narrative that says, you know, let's keep on. Yeah, I think it plays into the question I asked about. So,
could you maybe be more specific in detail in your
What
question?
kind of criticism or pressure you mean?
I think it's quite clear that it's really hard for like a memorial site to sort of get a position out, because there's a lot of pressure. So I think it's quite hard for like a memorial site and a museum to get a position on this topic, since there's a lot of pressure from both sides, no question.
Yeah.
But especially also from pro-Israeli government groups, since the government, of course, is also very powerful. Like, how do you deal with that too?
Mm-hmm. I'll try to understand, because, first of all, I mean, what Israel is doing now doesn't erase the Holocaust. The Holocaust was, and I'm a second generation to it. I mean, and even the fourth generation. I'll give you an example, like the slavery in the United States. It was 200 years ago, and still the blacks are still living it. You know, it was, even it's not anymore, it existed, and we have to relate it, no matter what Israel is doing. First thing. Now, in Israel, there was already a debate years ago how we should commemorate the Holocaust. I mean, the commemoration of the Holocaust is not one thing. Now, when I was young, we commemorated only the bravery of the Ghetto Varsha rebellion. Then we just despised the survivors, you know. We said, you went to the gas chambers like sheep to the slaughterhouse. We didn't want to relate to them. Then came the Eichmann process, 1962. Then we started listening to them. Now we are listening to them. So now we are commemorating the victims and the heroism. And that we have to also commemorate, since I realized that part of my family was saved by Slovakian farmers, which it means they risk their own lives and all families' lives. This should also be learned, because this is the entire humanity, the human society. And then, if you want to continue, learn it also as a universal thing, you know, and nothing to do right now with Israel, the Holocaust. Now, there is discussion. Israel was founded because of the Holocaust and stuff, which someone told me Ben-Gurion would be very offended if we say it, because they started building this country, you know, many years before the Holocaust. The Holocaust was a game changer. So I think it should be learned. It must be learned. And we also should learn our lessons, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you for the great questions and the discussion. We're going to break now. We've spoken about structures, frameworks, and societal developments. And after our short coffee break, we're going to hear from the individuals who are at the heart of the project path. Panel 2 belongs to the participants and ambassadors themselves. Before that, let's all have a break, get a quick air fresher, and come back in 30 minutes, so at 2:45 for the next session. Thanks very much.